What's up YouTube, Carboss here, back in another video where I talk about cards, money investing. Today we're going to talk about Marvel PMGs that recently ended on auctions last night, right? But this is not your typical list of cards that you see from a Goldin auction or a PLBCC. These are all listings from Breakers Row. So Breakers Row or Adam Row on Instagram, right? He's not new to the scene, right? So he's been around in the sports cards collectible and one of the biggest buyers as well as eBay stores on eBay that sells predominantly sports cards. But recently I bumped into some of his listings and he had a bunch of PMGs that all ended last night. 14 of them to be exact across 3 years. You would see some 2013s, 2017s, and I think is there any 2015s? No, I think there was 2013 and just one 2017. So a bunch of PMGs got listed. I presume that they're all part of a collection that he acquired, and it's just piecing them out to sell, and that's what he does. But looking at these cards on sale last night, there were a bunch of opportunities which I thought that had good chance of going in, and came out at decent prices. So I'm going to discuss on these 14 cards and some of the prices where I thought they would end, where it ended, and whether or not I pick up any of these pieces. So I'm just going to go here from bottom to top right. So the first one that ended was a Magneto 2013 PMG red, and for you guys who doesn't know, PMG reds are numbered out to 100, whereas the PMG blues are numbered out to 50. So Magneto PMG red, 510 bucks. It's pretty fair price. There were kind of fluctuation in the last, I would say, 30 to 60 days, whereby I've seen PMG red Magneto in a PSA 8 going for as high as about like 1200, but I've seen also BGS 8 that goes as low for like 6 to 800. So 510 bucks is pretty alright. One thing I noticed that across all of these examples, none of them are, I would say, pure mint condition. Like, I would be very surprised if any of these actually get a PSA 9. So I would say that most of these are, I would say, PSA 8 or PSA 7. There were a couple of examples that I would think that they are worse than PSA 7, which I'll get into later. But for this Magneto and maybe the subsequent Galactus, both of them are actually PSA 8 quality in my opinion. Alright, so 510 bucks is kind of like worth the punt for a PSA 8, assuming that you pay like say a $50 grading fee for the economy, and you probably net about like $300 to $400 kind of return. So that's what, and I would say a pretty fair price, between $500 to $600. Moving on to the Galactus, again, roughly the same range as Magneto. I think that Magneto is just a tad popular to Galactus, but the thing with Galactus is this was his only appearance in the PMG line, whereas Magneto appeared in the 2015 PMG lineup as well. So there is a bit of a slight premium, to be paid for Galactus. I would say the fair value on the Galactus is roughly about like 600 to about 650. I believe a PMG blue closed for about like 1200. So around the $600 mark is probably right what I say. It's in the fair market range. Moving on to Nova. So Nova's having a new TV series coming up, or is it a movie? Can't remember, but there is some popularity for Nova coming up, and to be surprised, ending at 315 bucks for a character that's appearing on the silver screen. But because I believe that there was some condition issues on this particular Nova, right? So therefore I think that the best grade that this Nova will get is probably a 7, maybe a 6, and that probably hurt the price for this particular Nova. Moving on, Domino. Not one of the more popular characters when you compare to Magneto and Galactus, and as well as Nova. So closing at 280 is probably about right. I had the valuation on this particular Domino to be about like the 250 range, so it's just a tad over. Perhaps somebody just paying a bit more to maybe get a complete set. Alright, the biggest card in the lot here, Doctor Strange here, that ended the highest here at $2,900, right? So this one had a fair bit of a yo-yo in the last couple of months, right? I've seen PSA 8 go as high as like $6,000, and sometimes a BGS 8, go as low as like $4,000. So a bit high and low on this Doctor Strange, when the movie is out, been out for quite a fair bit already. So, but of course, popular character. Very strong character as well, and nice looking card, even though he has appeared in the subsequent 2015 PMGs, but a lot of people still gravitate towards the 2013. copy this one here. In a PSA 8, I think that fair market price would be around the 4 to 4,500. Contrary to some of the, if you check some of the comps that people are saying that it should be like $6,000 to $8,000, I highly doubt so on that pricing for PMGs in general. And Doctor Strange, $6,000, I think it's pretty stretch, for a PSA 8. So 4,500, there is still a lot of upside here in this particular Doctor Strange. Moving on, Deadpool. So again, this is not a very high quality Deadpool. It's a very marginal borderline between a PSA 7 and PSA 8, and I think that hurt the price a bit. So fair value on this one, I believe there was a PSA, a BGS 8 that closed for about 1,600, if I'm not mistaken. So fair price on this particular raw, I would think that it's probably around the 14 to 1,500 range. I think it just got a bit of a nick because maybe people are saying the condition is just slightly under. So $1,000, worth a punt on this particular red color Deadpool color matching as well. Moving on, two characters here, not mainstream characters, Emma Frost and Miss Marvel, similar to what I discussed about Domino earlier, right? So not one of those mainstream characters, but still PMG blues. In general, if you're paying about like $500 for a PMG blue raw, if to get a PSA 8, I think it's a fair play in a sense. You put in like $50 for grading, you may get roughly about like 800 to 900 depending on the grade, right? Which I'm going to talk about an example later on. Galactus here, this one has a, I think has a ding corner, and that hurt the price a bit. That's why it only closed at 966. I think normally, as I discussed earlier, right, a raw blue Galactus will probably fetch minimum about $1,000 or $1,200. Potential PSA 8 Galactus may just fetch you a bit more. So this one got a bit hurt with the ding corner, but even 966 in my opinion is a bit high. I would assume that this particular one should be roughly about the 700 plus range. But again, it's still PMG, still a Galactus, so $900 is still a decent price to pay. Alright, the only 2017 among the list, Miles Morales here, MM50, and this is a bronze edition. That's our $199, $400 for raw. That's about the rough price that we're talking about these days. It went up as high as about like $700 at one point, but it has come down quite a fair bit now to $400, but still far away from where we were about a year ago, where I think PMG bronze from Miles could be had for under $100. Can you believe it? Alright, next up, two Incredible Hulks here, 2013, one red, one blue. This is a PSA 8 for the red and a PSA blue, a PSA 7 for the blue. Now, looking at price here, right? So $1,350 for PSA 8. I think that there, if you look back at Goldin's comps, I think about 2 months ago in April. So that's quite an outliner. I believe it's like $5,000 or $6,000, but a fair price I would say on this particular PSA 8 on the current market would be about like $1,500 to $1,800 kind of range. So this is kind of a bit under, which in my opinion is a pretty good deal. But you reflect that against the blue, which normally is in double in terms of the serial number, right? So this is our 100, this is our 50. So you would expect a PSA 8 blue to fetch around the $3,000 kind of range, $3,000, $3,200. I think the PSA 9 ended recently for about $4,900. So it's about that kind of rough price range, and we divide back to a PSA 7, $1,500. I think it's a fair price to pay. Moving on, Scarlet Witch PSA 7. PSA 9 recently closed for $3,200. I actually mentioned that in my Instagram. So if you divide back to a PSA 7, I would think that a rough fair price for a PSA 7 Scarlet Witch would be around the $750 to about $800. So this is slightly above, but not massively above. Still under $1,000. Worthwhile adding a graded PMG for under $1,000, especially for a character like Scarlet Witch into your collection. And lastly, we have Domino here for $760. So this is what I discussed about Miss Marvel and Emma Frost, whereby if you pay about like $500 and pay like $50 for grading fee, you probably will end up getting a PSA 8 roughly around this 700 to 800 plus kind of price range, right, depending on the character as well. So Domino is not one of the bigger characters, so as compared to like Emma Frost is pretty popular, and as you can see, Miss Marvel with the new TV series out, she's quite popular as well. So in a PSA 8, you'll probably be fetching north of 800, maybe close to 900. So coming back to this particular price point, $680 plus $50, $700. So if you're a PSA 8, you're looking to make like $100 to $150 profit after fees, which is pretty small, but I guess worth the gamble. Like I said, None of these, in my opinion, are PSA 9 quality. So if you're trying to punt to try and get a PSA 9, obviously, get a better price. That's yeah, it's a goal, but not something that really I would think that is realistic. Looking at the condition of these cards here. So that's basically it from Breakers Row, right? So it's quite it ended on Monday night, which is uncommon. A lot of these PMG auctions, like from Goldin, usually closes on Sunday. So Breakers Row actually put it out on a Monday night, so enable for other people to put on more eyes on PMG. So it's just happened there are 14 PMGs to choose from. In fact, I spent a lot of time looking at these in detail and added a few to my list here. So you can see here I got into the Hulk, I got into the Deadpool, got into the Galactus, and I got into the Magneto. I definitely wanted to go into other pieces as well. I was pretty interested to get the Doctor Strange, but when it was touching to the close to the $3,000 range, I just think that the upside is just a bit of a risk. The risk factor is a bit higher, right? So like I said, most of the conditions here are PSA 8 in my opinion, but you can easily drop down to PSA 7. That will affect the pricing. And PSA 7, it will be quite hard, quite a stretch to try and get back $3,000 on a PSA 7. So to me, it wasn't worth that kind of big dollars to shell out. I'd rather be buying smaller pieces like the Magneto and the Galactus, right, in hopes of getting a better return. So similar why I didn't get into these two, like I said, PSA 8s on this will probably fetch around the 800 to 900. The upside is just not there for these two pieces. And the Hulk, 1500 is a pretty fair price for this PSA 7. I didn't want to buy something that's fair. I don't want to go something under, which is what I did with this PSA 8 Red Hulk here. So that's basically my cover for the last night's auction on these PMGs. PMGs continue to move at fairly decent prices. There's still a lot of interest in PMGs. I mean, people talk about the spikes, in early of the year and then the crash in around April. But I think it's starting to level off nicely, and a lot of collectors are coming back, procuring the pieces that they couldn't actually procure when it went massively crazy back in February. So I still think that there is a lot to be worked on right here. Still a lot of raw copies in the wild, like what you can see from this auction, right, to be worked on. Now PSA 8s I think will be the general baseline, to buy and sell graded copies, but and PSA 9s you're gonna still fetch nice premiums on top. Alright, that's all I got for today. Do like and subscribe, follow my content for more Marvel stuff in future. Thanks for watching, guys. Cowboys out.